Kelsey Provo, Kelsey. Provo is P as in Peter, ROV as in Victor O. I'm a senior supervisory attorney at Innovation Law Lab.
Okay, and then since we weren't able to be in court today, just trying to understand, both of these cases were argued as one. Are they combined at this point, or were they argued as two separate cases?
No, they were argued as two separate cases, and they were just both argued at the same time.
Okay, and then was the ruling done in both separately then, or like how was it one ruling for both?
It was the ruling, the judge issued a ruling for both.
Okay, so can you talk a little bit about what happened in court today, and then what the judge's response was?
Yeah, so today we went to court for Aaron and Jane to argue that the government's unilateral decision was illegal. And while we investigate further and while we argue the case further, we ask the judge restore Jane and Aaron's authorization, or order the government to restore Jane and Aaron's authorization to work and study because they were suffering irreparable harm, and the judge agreed with us.
So what happens now? I mean, the judge has ordered the Trump administration to restore these revoked visas and to not deport them in the meantime. But as you know, with the Abrega Garcia case, that hasn't happened yet. So is there concern that that doesn't happen here?
So right now, the government is going to need to move to restore their status so that Jane and Aaron can continue their education, continue their research. Jane is just weeks away from graduating, so it's important that she maintain her studies. That's what we expect the government to do based on the judge's order.
What was that last part? Sorry.
That's what we expect the government to do based on the judge's order today.
Okay. If that doesn't happen, will you pursue contempt of court?
Could you repeat your question?
Yeah, I mean, if that doesn't happen, do you pursue in contempt of court or something like that? Like, how does that work?
So I think we'll see. We'll see. My understanding is that the government has restored status in other cases across the country where the judge has ordered them to do so. So we fully expect the government to do that here.
There's a lot of students in Oregon right now that are dealing with this. Now that these two have been resolved, are you encouraging these other students to also seek out legal action on their cases?
The decision today by the judge was the right outcome for Aaron and Jane. And I am hopeful that this decision will empower other students to come forward to know that what the government has done to them is illegal and that they do have recourse to restore their statuses.
Do they have the same recourse if they've already left the country?
I don't think that they do. But at least here, I don't know that there are other students who have left the country, but they should explore their rights and what options they have.
And then, I mean, this is a scary situation for students because you're hearing right and left these reports of people getting stuck in immigration detention for weeks on end. And I understand that, if you're a student, that's probably a pretty scary prospect. And there has been, the Oregonian has reported that a PSU student has left because of this. What are your clients dealing with at this point in making this decision?
I mean, both clients, Jane and Aaron, were on track to pursue their studies, and the floor was ripped out from under them unexpectedly by the government. And of course, that has had a very serious impact on them, not only economically and on their studies, but mentally. And so the judge's order today just shows that the government can't do what it did. They can't do what it did. The government needs to restore their status while we look further at the legal issues at play.
And can you talk about some of the fears that they had to overcome in deciding to move forward with this legal action? I mean, assuming that, they risk deportation by staying in the country past those 10 days. So they have to make that decision. Do I leave or do I risk potentially getting locked up in an ICE detention center for a period of time? I imagine that crossed their mind. Is that something that you discussed with them?
I think, your students who are working towards their degree, I mean, they want to follow all of the terms of their status, the requirements that are put on them. Like they're at a point in their lives where like following the requirements of their schools and their degrees is important. So I think this order jeopardized that for them. And thankfully, Jane and Aaron were able to talk with lawyers to hear that, this isn't right. This shouldn't have happened. And so I'm hoping that through this case and through Aaron and Jane's ability and willingness to stand up for their rights, that other students will need to come forward as well, so that they do feel some semblance of stability, that they can continue on track to complete their educational and career goals in the United States.
Did they discuss fear about what happens if they stay with you?
I mean, I think we've seen nationally, as you mentioned, that the government is willing to take any action, legal or illegal. And so there is a fear, I think, among students and among universities for their students, that detention and deportation is a possibility. Here, now that we have, the judge's order requiring defendants to restore their status, that fear can be lifted and they can continue with their studies and their education.
Are you working on this case pro bono? Like, are the students going to be paying these legal fees? How does this work?
Yeah, so both students are not paying legal fees. Oregon's Universal Representation Program, they've both been enrolled in the program. And so that is how they're able to proceed.
Universal, what did you call it? Sorry.
So Oregon's Universal Representation Program, Equity for Oregon, ECHO.
And then do you know what the wait list is for that? And are there other students that you know of that are pursuing the same?
So we're aware of other students who have started to come forward, but right now we are focusing on Jane and Aaron and moving their cases forward so that we can continue to provide them with protection beyond just the judge's order today.
Are you, do you know more or less, or have you been able to quantify or an estimate of how many students are in a similar boat where they don't have any charges against them that are resulting in this?
The only students that we've been in contact with thus far is Aaron and Jane. I have, heard through the media that there are other students. And as those students come forward, we'll speak with them about their options.
When we talked to you last, you mentioned that this was not related to protests. Can you talk a little bit about that? Do you believe that they could have been targeted because of free speech?
Both Aaron and Jane were focusing on their studies, their career. And it really, even after today's hearing, it is still unclear why the government made this termination determination. So we really are still trying to gather additional information on that point.
Were there any social media posts that may have triggered this? Anything speaking out against the government that you know of?
We don't know. Again, the government hasn't clarified the reason, the terminology and rationale. It was incredibly vague. And even today, the government wasn't able to further explain the reasoning behind the termination. So we still don't know.
Did they participate in any of the Gaza protests on their campuses?
Both Aaron and Jane were focusing on their research, focusing on finishing their degrees and moving forward with their careers.
Is that a no, or?
That's all I can say about it.
Gotcha. And then moving forward, I mean, this is a 14-day pause. So what happens next?
So what happens next is we do further research and briefing for the judge. So right now, Aaron and Jane, they get to continue with their studies, continue with their research, and then the legal fight in court continues.
We talked about Aaron already. Can you talk a little bit about this Jane Doe, her course of studies, what she was, what she was also a graduate student, as I understand it, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Jane Doe, she's a concurrent master's student at University of Oregon and the Oregon School of Law. She was set to graduate in just weeks until the government dropped this bomb on her, which has totally upended her educational trajectory. Hopefully with this order, she'll be able to be on track to graduate in just a few weeks and graduate with her class.
As a master's student, can you talk about some of her achievements in you said a concurrent course of study? What does that mean?
concurrent. It means she's working on two master's degrees at the same time. So she's working on a master's through University of Oregon and then a degree through the University of Oregon School of Law.
What was the University of Oregon master's?
So Jane is proceeding under pseudonym, so there is some information that she does not want shared with the public. So to the extent there are further questions, I would encourage you to look at the pleadings in the case. We're trying to respect her desire for privacy.
Is she a Jane Doe because she's afraid she'll get deported? What is the fear here? Why is she remaining anonymous?
I think we can see, I mean, we see fear from all, like, nationally from these students, right? It's just the unknown of, like, what does this mean? Why have I been targeted? And so she's proceeding under pseudonym to just protect herself.
Can you tell me, is she getting any resources through the university to help her through this?
I don't know.
And then what were some of the adverse, situations that came about? I think you had mentioned having to stop classes. How long had that been? Like, how long did she have to stop classes for? And will there be any consequences of that?
I mean, so like Aaron, Jane's CVIS record was terminated on April 4th. So it seems to be that the administration terminated a flurry of student statuses at that time. And like Aaron, she had to stop attending classes. She has lost out on opportunities through her course of study. We are hopeful that because her status is going to be restored along with Aaron's, at least for the next 14 days, that she'll be able to pick up where she left off, so that she can have some semblance of life as what it was before the government dropped this bomb on her.
14 days enough to graduate, or she would need a month there? Do you know what the status is there?
I mean, we'll need, yeah, certainly. So the order is for the next 14 days. And we will look to extend that order through briefing.
But she would need how long to graduate?
I think she was set to graduate in June.
Okay, so she would need a month and a half or so, depending on how this goes. Okay. Do you know when the next court date is set at this point?
I'm not sure. I'm still on my way back from the hearing and I have to look at the orders that have been issued. But we expect a further briefing to take place this week with a hearing likely at the 14-day mark or soon after.
Did the administration argue anything in court today? And what was that argument? What did the other side have to say? Did they show up?
They did. The arguments the government presented today are the same arguments that we are seeing them present in other cases. And today they weren't sufficient for the judge not to move forward with granting the temporary restraining order.
What is the argument that they made?
The main argument that they made was that the termination of CVIS record doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have any effects, which obviously it does have effects. DHS's own rules say that it does have effects. And as we're seeing with Aaron and Jane and other students nationally, there are very clear consequences to the termination of a student CVIS record. I think for that reason and all of the irreparable harm we will able to show today for Jane and Aaron, that's why the judge granted the temporary restraining order.
Anything else you would add that we haven't covered?
No, thank you.
Thanks so much, Kelsey. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Bye. Bye.